Logan had a question about hard to value properties. Um, so I'm going to try to help him out. So Logan, specific question. So you've got, what was an example of one that you were having a hard time with?
Number one, just being a rural property that doesn't really have anything similar. Once you get rural, there's a lot of unique properties out there. Different lot sizes, different outbuildings, different home sizes, updates. It's just, sometimes it's tough to find really similar sales on these rural properties.
Yeah, so rurals especially can be interesting. So one thing that needs to be done a lot of times. So a typical sale, let's say it's a 3-bed, 2-bath house in town, right? We use comps, So this is the neighborhood, and they're all lots like this, right? And you've got like say the road. So like this is the same as this. These were all built in a similar year, right? And then we can go, okay, this one has new paint, so this one's worth 5% more than this one. Because they're comparable, or it's like in a homogeneous neighborhood. So homogeneous, like if you think about it, milk is homogeneous, right? If I go buy vitamin or regular whole milk at Fred Meyer, it's probably going to be the same milk that they're selling at Albertsons. Could be even from the same dairy farm. It's homogeneous. They're all the same. So these are easy to value because of that. And then, so what you're saying is when they're non-homogeneous, it gets really interesting. So sometimes if, let's say that this place is 40 acres and it's got an 800 square foot house on it, we'll have to look at it in multiple ways, right? So we may go look at, okay, what is land worth? Like, what is just a land selling for? Who is our buyer? What is that buyer's use? What's the highest and best use for this rural property? Is it zoned EFU with water? And we're seeing 40-acre parcels sell for as much or more than 40-acre parcels that have a house on it, right? So is the value more in the land? Or if this is a 40-acre guy and it's a 3,500 square foot house, then the highest and best use for that property may be a rural residential use versus like a farming use. So that's one thing to do, is just to get creative about, okay, who's our buyer? What are they going to use it for? And what is this going to be worth to them, right? Because we know ultimately value is going to be what a ready, willing, and able buyer that has seen competing properties on the market is willing to pay. So we may not necessarily be able to pull it just on comps alone, or we may have to go a wider radius. If this is super creepy and it's in Jackson County, maybe we need to look in Jackson and Josephine, or even grab like Roseburg or Klamath Falls if it's a rural property. And another thing to do is look for off-market comps. Like we just met with the First American people, and they have the product that will pull things that were not on the MLS for sale. So that would be the one thing for rural property, is not just the comps, but what is it going to be used for? And is something not comparable in lot size, in square footage, but it is comparable in use, right? Like land with a house versus land with no house, land with a big house, land with a small house. So sometimes you can just bust up, like, we know what 40 acres is worth. Okay, we know that. We've seen 10 comps, this type of zoning, this type of land is worth this much. And then from there, we can kind of figure out what a house is worth. And that we know that when we split them, the house may be worth $350 and the acres may be worth $350, but together they're not worth $700, they're worth $600, right? Because the house doesn't have value outside of the land. Does that help at all?
Mm-hmm.
And then, did you have another example?
Yeah, another example would be kind of a similar situation, but in town, where you've got a very unique place. Maybe it's way larger in square footage than all of the neighbors, or maybe it's a much bigger lot size, but it's in town. So it's just tough to find comparables on that as well.
So oddball property. So we know that the smallest house in the neighborhood is going to get brought up by the values of the other ones. So, for example, if you've got an 800 square foot house, and then all the other neighbors are 1,500 to 2,000, this 800 footer is going to sell for a disproportionately higher amount per square foot than these do. So let's say that these are 190 to 200 a foot. This one may sell for 250 a foot. And then on the other side of that, if you're in the neighborhood is 15 to 2,000 and you built a 3,500 or 4,000 square foot house, that's double, right? The average size. If the average size was 1,750, 3,500 would be double, I think. Right? Close enough. So in this case, this one's going to sell for disproportionately less per square foot for the same reason. For the same reason that these are pulling this value up, these are also pulling this value down. So on this one, you may have to figure out, like a lot of times we'll look in a neighborhood and figure out kind of what the ceiling is. Like, hey, we've noticed that there's not really anything that's going over 350 in this neighborhood. And your house is twice as big as that one. You got same thing. You got to get kind of weird. Who's the buyer for this? Does it have 6 bedrooms? Does it have a pool? Like, what other features outside of the size can we find comps to? So normally we'll go like a quarter mile, half mile, or like a 1 mile radius to figure out what the comparable sales are. You may X your distances and find out what are other houses that are 3,500 to 4,000 square feet selling for in Jackson County as a whole. Okay, and if it's sold in Ashland and this one's in Medford, we know that there's going to be a delta just in the fact that Ashland has a higher average sales price than Medford does. So you gotta find something that's got the 6 bedrooms. You know, you may find some 3,000 footers with 6 bedrooms. You may find some 4,000 footers with 6 bedrooms, and just jam them all together. And it just takes more time, but ultimately you'll be able to find something that's either similar in size, in location, and then some amenities like 6 beds and a pool. Okay. This really good comp is 3,200 square feet. This other really good comp is 4,000 square feet, but it looks like they're selling for a very similar price per square foot. And what the buyer really was looking for was the 6 bedrooms and the pool. So if you can pick apart a couple of those things outside of just your typical location and square footage, that'll help you. And then have that conversation with your client too. Say, hey, this is a weird one. I'm going to shoot you straight on it. Here's why I came up with the value that I did. If you know of anything else that I don't know about, I'm happy to look into those. But right, because they probably know. When they bought it, they probably knew. Or when they built it, they probably had an idea. Like, hey, the lot was the right price, and we needed 3,500 square feet in a 1,500 square foot neighborhood, so we just did it. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kill it. Goodbye. Hello. You save it, you download it.